Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. This is the Real Nathan Daley. I'm your law enforcement translator, your 13-year law enforcement veteran, here to provide insight on these difficult topics that we are experiencing nationwide. The foolishness, the drama, the chaos, the stupidity, and the comic relief. You guys, we cover it all over here. I'm giving you my spin. I'm giving you my perspective, my insight. Listen, you guys, thank you so much for following this channel. If you haven't already, if you're new, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. Shout out to the members. I really appreciate you guys. I could not do this without you. Please, if you see value in this channel, please subscribe, support, join, and become a member. Would love to have you guys or join us on our live streams. We have them every Wednesday. Listen, this topic right here, what we're going to talk about today, listen, it's been very low key. A lot of people haven't been speaking on it. You don't see it across the news. Right now, what's really popular right now is a Shaquilla Robinson case, rightfully so. But listen, you guys, as those things happen, other things are taking place, and we're gonna make sure we touch on those. This is absolutely madness. We're talking about a psychopath. We're talking about a sick pedophile, sick individual, you guys. And listen, let's break it down. Who are we talking about? We're talking about a suspect, an offender, a pedophile, a sick, wicked individual by the name of Austin Lee Edwards. Let me show you his face, because I think by looking at him, unfortunately, you should be able to determine for yourself. By looking at him, you can already tell he's sick. He's disgusting. And what I'm about to tell you guys, if you're not familiar with this case, it's gut-wrenching. Evil incarnate, you guys. This is one of those things where we all realize that people like him do exist in the world. And we always have to be careful of these predators. Always looking to prey on somebody. You guys, what did Austin do? This bastard decided that he was going to go on an online dating site. Right? They're calling him the catfish killer, right? Like catfishing, right? You're not who you say you are. You're pretending to be somebody else, and then when you show up, people are shocked. The catfish killer. What did he do? This man is 28 years old. This suspect, this offender is 28 years old. He goes on an online dating site, pretends to be a 17-year-old boy. He attracts a 15-year-old girl from California. You guys, he lives in Virginia. Somehow, some way, they decided to meet up. The 15-year-old girl, the victim, she gives him her address. He now has her address, but he lives in Virginia. He's pretending to be 17. We don't know what image or persona he donned on in order to try to convince this young girl that he was 17. We don't know. And they're still investigating as we speak to try to determine what online dating app they were actually using and how they were actually making that initial connection. They have not released that information yet. I don't know if they have it. You guys, he drove from Virginia to California to meet this young girl. This young girl lives with her mother and her grandparents in California. What did Austin do? You guys, he killed them. He killed them. He drives to California and he kills the girl's mother. Then he kills the girl's grandparents, the grandfather and the grandmother. How'd he do it? He duct taped them. He tied them up. And right before he left, he set the house on fire. You guys, this is a sick, evil individual. Austin Lee Edwards. When you look at him, it's... he kind of reminds me of the Joker from Batman. He has that look about him. All he's missing is the face paint and the scar. Scary, man. Sick. But you know what the most disturbing thing of it all? He's a cop. He's a cop. Or he was a cop. A sheriff deputy out of Virginia. And we're going to play a news clip because I want you to get the whole story, get the feel of what took place. But you guys, this is disturbing. This is disturbing. So, what was his career like? I guess, according to the news, he worked for the Virginia State Police Department. He was hired July 6, 2021. He graduated January 21st, 2022 as a trooper. And he resigned from Virginia State Police October 28th, 2022. Then he got rehired by the Washington County Sheriff's Office November 16th, 2022. You guys, this incident happened November 25th. November 25th. You guys, he was active. He was an active officer, a sheriff officer. Wow. Is he alive? No. They killed him. Well, technically, according to the news, he killed himself. You guys, let's look at this clip. I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Have you heard about this incident? I just came across this and it just blew my mind and there's a lot of things to unpack in this, right? We're going to talk about it, but let's go into, let's dive into the news article because I really want you to hear. And this is the victim's mom right here. And this is her grandparents. Man, rest in peace to them. Please, you guys, keep the family in your prayers. This is a triple homicide. It's beyond tragic. And I don't know, one could argue, could this have been avoidable? What could we have done differently? I don't know. Let's go into this news clip.
New details involving the man accused in the murders of 3 members of a Riverside family.
Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan is live in Riverside, where relatives are speaking out about the tragedy just days after her sister and both parents were murdered. Rob?
Right. Well, just a couple of hours ago, we learned from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department that murder suspect involved in the shootout with them in the high desert actually committed suicide. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound during that shootout. We're also learning from Riverside Police that the 3 murder victims found inside that home were found with their hands and feet bound with duct tape. As you mentioned, though, we also heard extensively from a family member during a very emotional news conference this morning.
If something like this horrific tragedy can happen here in our neighborhood, in our community, it can happen anywhere.
Fighting through tears, Shelley Blandon is speaking out after her sister and both parents were murdered.
This horrific event started with an inappropriate online romance between a predator and a child.
28-year-old Austin Edwards is accused of driving all the way across the country trying to meet up with a 15-year-old girl who he met online, pretending he was only 17 years old as part of a catfishing scheme. It ended with that girl's mother and grandparents murdered, the suspect using duct tape on their hands and feet, then setting fire to their Riverside home.
Catfishing led to the deaths.
Could you, oh my God. I mean, just hearing them talk about it. You guys, I had a case where suspects did a home invasion and duct taped the residents. And let me tell you, it is a terrifying situation to witness, to see the fear, the pain, the anguish, the despair in their eyes not knowing whether or not or how this thing was going to turn out. I could only imagine. You guys, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. You know, the kids, man, we have to keep better eyes on children. And this isn't a blame game, but 15 years old on a dating site, you know, and giving out personal information, people don't realize, and I tell parents this all the time, I tell young kids this all the time, your actions can have indirect consequences, can impact others that you don't intend them to impact. And this is what we see here, you know. But I'm gonna give you my thoughts about this and different things, just based off of things that I've seen and things that we have all seen nationwide over the years, and for us to be mindful that, you know, things are not always what they appear to be, and you have to see beyond what you can see in order to understand what's actually going on behind the scenes. And so, but we'll talk about that.
3 most important people in my life.
Blandon said they were out buying Christmas lights last Friday morning when a neighbor called them to say their house was on fire.
I couldn't get there fast enough. We left everything in the shopping cart at the store and took off. When I had arrived at my house, we had learned that something more tragic had happened.
Blandon's mother and father, Mark and Sherry Winnick, were murdered, along with her 38-year-old sister, Brooke, who was the mother of the catfishing victim. Police say they're still not sure which social media messaging app was used, and they're not sure how long the suspect and 15-year-old had been communicating. They are also unsure whether he'd ever revealed his true identity to her before the day of the murders.
We don't know yet if she was threatened, coerced. We're not describing it as a kidnapping at this point, but we also don't have any reason to believe that she was complicit in any of these.
So I think it's interesting when they say, and no disrespect to the family, to the victims, you guys, I'm simply here giving my insight, my perspective to this situation. He said, I think is really interesting, we're not treating this as a kidnapping, which is very interesting because it should be considered a kidnapping unless she went willingly, right? According to one of the witnesses, the neighbor said they saw her walking away crying when she went into the car with him. Apparently he initially parked in the neighbor's yard or the neighbor's driveway. The neighbor was like, hey, you can't park here. He's like, oh, my bad. And he apologized and then moved the car. And the neighbor thought something was suspicious about him. And then, of course, seeing the victim walk with him and get in the car and they drive off, the neighbor got the license plate and called the police. And then it wasn't until shortly after, of course, and the house is burning down, so forth and so on. They're saying they're not treating it as a kidnapping. I don't know why that's the case. Of course, they still want to make sure they do their due diligence and get more information in regards to what's going on as far as how they met, how they communicate, why they meet. Was this a consensual? Did he ever really reveal himself? But they know he pretended to be 17. So that has to be something that was given to them by the victim. You guys, I'm gonna be completely honest. In situations like this, nothing is off the table. When you're investigating crimes, especially homicides, nothing is off the table. You have to imagine the worst case scenarios. You have to paint people in the worst kind of light in order to rule them out from being an actual suspect. The girl is 15. It doesn't mean she's not dangerous. It doesn't mean that she could not have had anything to do with this. Doesn't mean that she herself could not have been coercing him, or encouraging him, or asking him to do the things that he did. You guys, I'm telling you, and again, this is no disrespect, and this is not to say that those are things that have been done, but just to get you an idea of what goes on in the minds of people who investigate these types of crimes. There have been situations where kids have coerced adults to remove people, family members, out of their lives permanently, and they did it, and so it's one of those things where you have to look at all. You look at things like, I know these were young boys, but the Menendez Menendez brothers. This was a long time ago, back in the early 90s or 80s. I can't remember, but you know, they killed their parents and act like nothing happened, like they had nothing to do with it. You know, these things happen a lot where kids take their parents' lives or they get someone else to do it. You know, people are like, oh, she's 15, she's age. So not saying that that's the case, but that is one angle to look at it. Another one is, yeah, he catfished her. He showed up. He was a predator to begin with. You know, he was sick and twisted to begin with. I tell people all the time, folks like, well, he was a cop. He worked for the sheriff's. That means absolutely nothing. He was a sick individual wearing a police uniform, you know, or a sheriff's uniform. He was a deputy, but that means nothing. People say you should better vet these people. It's not that easy. You know, people have secrets, right? People have skeletons in their closets. So, nonetheless, this is extremely tragic. It makes me wonder how they got in contact with each other. But nowadays, you guys, social media is a thing, and there's so many different apps that predators actually are on and have ways of accessing your kids. You know, as parents, we have to be so vigilant to make sure and ensure that what the kids are using, that there's safeguards on, that they're protected, that you're teaching them and telling them on, you know, what information not to share with strangers or people, regardless of what you think. There's just so much, man. There's so much that went wrong in this particular situation. And, you know, what do you do? What do you do? And I'm curious to know, was there a forced entry into the house, or was the girl, she let him in? Like, I'm so curious as to see how the rest of this investigation unfolds. But I'm curious to know what you guys think as well. Let me just finish out this clip, and then I'll give you my closing.
Murders or the fire as well.
Meantime, Blandon says the entire family is extremely grateful for the neighbor who called 911 to report seeing the suspect leave the scene with the teenage girl.
Making that call from that neighbor saved my niece's life, and that neighbor is a hero in our eyes.
The family hopes the community rallies around not only the 15-year-old catfishing victim, but her younger sister, both of whom are now without their mother and grandparents.
For my two young nieces who are now left.
Could you imagine how the victim feels? Essentially, the blame, the guilt that she is probably feeling. I can only assume, you know, that her actions. Can you imagine having to live with that guilt for the rest of her life? That her actions ushered in the death of her parent, her mom, and her grandparents. You know what I mean? Like, that is tough, man. That is a heavy burden to carry. I can't even fathom, you know, the amount of counseling that's going to be needed. But regardless, you guys, this is a tragedy beyond measure, you know. And it's a reminder that though things look peaceful and pleasant on the outside, there are always wicked people walking among us, looking for an opportunity to take advantage, looking for an opportunity to exploit. And we have to be careful. We always have to be careful. It's just, things just aren't as sweet as we think it is.
Motherless. We hope that this community can wrap your arms around them and lift them up. They have the most difficult journey ahead, as they are minors and they don't understand everything that has happened.
And Riverside police say that 15-year-old catfishing victim is not with the family right now, instead being treated by therapists with Child Protective Services. We're told autopsies are being conducted on the 3 murder victims. Riverside police not saying anything about cause of death right now, although the police chief did say it does not appear that they were shot.
The virus.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, they're saying it doesn't appear that the ones who died were shot. So I wonder, I mean, there's nothing, we can't even speculate, because was it the fire that killed them, or did he do something else to them? I don't know. We'll have to wait for some more information to come out, you guys. This is fairly recent, so the investigation is still ongoing. Let me know your thoughts on this. This is completely completely wild. You guys, again, next couple videos coming out over here on this channel, it's going to be about a lot of, unfortunately, tragic death. A lot of sick, twisted cases coming up. There's one I will be covering in reference to the 4 students, college students in Idaho that were slain, killed with a knife. That mass killing up there. Then, you know, I definitely have to cover the Walmart situation, and then the one on the bus at another college campus, you know. So it's a lot of nothing fun to talk about over here, but really diving deeper into these topics now that more information is coming out and the hype has died down. You guys know I don't really like to ride the train of the hype. I really like to get the information and then really have the conversation with you to dive into it deeper and expand and give you my perspective on it, especially these upcoming cases that we're going to talk about. So anyways, you guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Please keep the family in your prayers. Very tragic, very sad situation. Very, very evil, wicked person that caused this pain to this family, to the community. And you know, they'll never be the same. You know, God willing that they can learn to or find peace and grow past this tragedy. So with that being said, you guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Good night. God bless.